Good. Right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this month's edition of Book Club. And this month is Measure What Matters by Joh Doerr. Funny name, but never don't quite know how to pronounce it. So Measure What Matters, been on my recommended reading list for some time, and I've just read it this month, so it's my first view of it, and loved it. I just thought, really, really good. Quite simple. I don't know, has anybody read right to the back?
No, hands up.
So
I haven't read the appendix.
If you haven't read it all yet, okay, if you actually go to the resources, resource 3 and resource 4 right at the back, that's all you really need to read of the book.
Now you tell us.
You didn't tell us that last week.
So the rest of it really is to me was about the case studies and actually people talking about putting it into action. So yeah, just not just a set of business ideas. Actually companies have lived this stuff and had great success from it. So what I sort of did with this, so for those that I think everyone's been to Book Club before, but for those that are watching, the purpose is to just ensure we continually learn. So there's something to read, and we've got a bit of a deadline, otherwise the books just stay on the bedside table, and to share those learnings with like-minded people, because you read books and you can't take every aspect in. When somebody else reads it, they often pick up a different aspect, and that just reinforces our learning, which is really useful, and hopefully a bit of fun and community as well. So this was the author. I got surprised, the 105th richest man in the USA, and seemed to have, I think he was classed as sort of the Midas of Silicon Valley. So everything he touched turned to gold. So invested in Compaq, Netscape, Symantec, Microsystems, Amazon, Google. It's like whatever this guy got involved in seemed to grow rapidly. Now, whether that was luck, whether it was tools he used allow them to do, or a mixture of both, probably most likely. But he's certainly had a lot of success with it, and the people that have used his sort of readings within, even sort of Bono, as you see in the last chapter, really took to concept, and because I think it's simple, and it's really been the basis of what I've been teaching you all of these years, really about 90-day planning, being clear what your number one goal is, and then breaking it down into activities underneath. So reasonably simple concept. So these were the sort of 4 what he called OKR. So OKR stands for objectives and key results, and these are the 4 superpowers. So what I thought we'd do is, because there's quite a bit in the book, we'll look at sort of each area, sort of each chapter, and then we'll come up with what our sort of top learnings and our thoughts and ideas were around each of those. So focus was the so before we get into the sort of the focus side, anything from the that sort of first part of the book that sort of stood out to people?
I think much like what you said, Kevin, it is relatively a simple book in the sense that it's a very easy, enjoyable read. Not that I've read the resources. I just kind of felt that they were just going over the same point time and time again. Yeah. And it was like, okay. Admittedly, yes, there was like the simple, and then there was the stretched kind of goals. But once I got past that, I just felt I was just having a read of these just generalistic stories. Yeah. Which I didn't really learn much with it as the chapters went on.
So the principle itself was simple enough to get quite quickly. So let's look at the, setting these or the focus on the objective then. So that's just what I come up with. So, what's the most important thing in the business? Does anybody sort of relate that to what they're doing in their business right now? Or did you find it sometimes difficult to think at that level?
I think, Kevin, this is Sabrina. I think we can certainly relate it to our business, what we could have been doing over the last year. We've had our 90-day plans, which you helped us put in place, and that has certainly made a difference to the rate at which we've moved forward and the way in which we've moved forward. I think, you can have clear-cut timeframes, but the thing I liked about it was that, if you get it wrong or perhaps not quite right on track, you can retrack. I've quoted a line here: to win in the global marketplace, organizations need to be more nimble than ever before. And I think that's very true. That's one of the things we've learned working with you, is to try not to drag our feet so much and be a lot more nimble and a lot more focused.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm not dissimilar in that if you do lose that focus, it's so easy just to get drawn into the day job. It really is, and that's the big learning I've really had in the last year. It's that kind of having to keep the momentum going on working on the business rather than in it.
Yeah, and having these just gives you that chance to push back up. Certainly in a you can imagine in a big business where you've got hundreds of people around. There are people that are just able to do this at the top, whereas when we're running our own businesses, we're having to set the strategy, we're having to set the key results, then we're going to have to do the work, then we have to keep ourselves accountable to it, and that's where we sort of just end up being bogged down in not actually going anywhere. So those sort of check-ins with ourselves, I think, are critical. So just turn to page 54. Start with page 27. That was one I highlighted. So if you remember, managing by objectives, you referred to, and then that sort of comparison with OKRs. And in that little table there, and what stood out for you for those six aspects of Intel's OKRs? Steve?
I think obviously it goes back to some of the things you said about obviously being SMART goals. So it's basically being a bit more specific, and it reminds me a little bit of one of the books I've read is The Lean Startup, and it's a bit more similar to that, because rather than obviously saying annual, and it's very much a fixed sort of waterfall pattern where you start at the top and you do it step by step. These are a bit more cyclical. So you're looking at it every quarter. If it goes wrong, then you can change things, kind of thing. So it's a bit more dynamic. So it's similar to sort of traditional goal setting, but it's a bit more, like I said, a bit more dynamic than the ways people have done it in the past, basically.
Yeah, and I think that the word dynamic there, I mean, to me, the one that stood out was the one at the bottom. Traditional sort of MBOs goal setting is sort of risk averse. Well, what if we fail? So we'll grow by 10%, grow by 5%, whereas what I got from this, and the companies, that they were shooting for the stars. They're really sort of going, right, well, what if we, not what if we fail, what if we achieve this? And there's a couple of bits I think later on where he challenges the. I think was it in the YouTube one where he's sort of challenging the number of users per 7-day average or something, and he's saying, well, it's not good enough. What if it was more? And they sort of then set a more aspirational goal, which they're all a little bit, not sure if we can do this, and then smashed it.
Liked a bit towards the end of the book when it's talking about the dashboard, and he's saying if your dashboard is all green, all your OKRs are green, and actually that's not good.
Yeah,
you want to peppering of red, otherwise you're not stretching yourself enough.
Yeah, I went into a quite a big company, 20-odd million turnover, and went into their war room, which is where they had their meetings, and all over the walls, massive big wall with all their KPIs, all the graphs, and everything on there was green. And I hadn't read the book, and I just looked at it and said, so you come in here every Wednesday and you pat each other on the back and say how well you're doing, then you bugger off. I said, you're clearly measuring the wrong thing. You're just measuring things that are right, because the culture in the organisation was one as if it's bad, if it's red, it's bad. And that's the bit that, to me, this gets away from in this book, is red is good. Yeah, we don't want, we had another client doing a customer, an employee survey. And he said, oh, we did really well, we got 95%. I said, well, yeah, that is good. But how do we improve? So you're telling me you're perfect, are you? You're 95% perfect. We've only got 5% improvement from improvement. Well, not really. I said, well, you're asking the wrong questions then. You want to ask questions that give you a crap result so you can say, fantastic, great, I can do something about this. And I think this is the real big thing, is we've got to be prepared to fail and see failing forward. As long as I've tried something to work, if it doesn't work, that's okay. And we will come, that's sort of towards the back of the book again about resetting goals. If they're not working, great, ditch them, come up with something else. As long as we're always moving forwards. So, and I think the other one was tied to compensation, divorce and compensation. Yeah, if we tie performance with compensation, it gets us into a hell of a problem. Steph, you come across that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm really conscious. A lot of this really rung true with my working in pharmaceuticals, because obviously they tend to be very, very, very goal orientated and really quite forward thinking and quite aspirational too. So she went and had a Pfizer vaccine yesterday. I was quite glad it was Pfizer, seeing as I work for them.
That's not inside knowledge, is it, to get it early, is it, Steph? So.
No, actually, they obviously thought I was kind of starting to talk about which one was better, and I went, no, I just worked for them for 7 years, so I really would like that one. They were like, that's what, you don't get choice, so you get what you get.
Do they tell you before you get it then, or?
Yeah.
I do. Okay.
But there was literally, I think they were using that for Pfizer, and there was a batch of Astra coming in that afternoon, so I timed it flukily right. So, yeah, it was just coincidence. I mean, I think this is an interesting one, because obviously within pharmaceutical sales, you can't massively financially incentivise just because of the nature of the regulatory industry. So it's an interesting one that kind of sits around that, which is very much around. There are incentivizations, but they're different, and it's just that whole kind of. There'd be lots of stuff around league tables, so actually the monetary thing would be quite high because of the nature of the business. You'd be very well looked after. There'd be lots of emphasis on wellness and coaching and developing and growth through training, lots of career ladders, lots of carrots from that kind of side of things, and lots and lots of emphasis really on, there would be the supreme prizes, but they would be very much on ladder, and they would be very much for the elite of the elite kind of thing. So, there would be the trip to New York or Dubai or whatever it was, but actually we're 1,000 sales staff. So, that was for like one person. So actually, there was the really, really big golden carrot, but the rest of it was they were remunerated really well. They were expected to perform really well. And interestingly, what we used to find massively is they would have team objectives. So they'd work in teams of 4 on a patch. and you would get real peer pressure. So if one didn't perform, very quickly the other three would turn on that one individual and either get them up to standard in terms of coaching them, or ostracize them around wanting them out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when you make it clear what the goal is, what the rules are, what's expected, people will self-regulate. It's when
and we used to measure on things like, they'd have metrics like, you've got 10 calls a day. There's quality measures around the call. They're obviously regulated in terms of what they would cover, and so it's interesting around his kind of balance of quality versus quantity as well. So there was that kind of mix. It wasn't a case of just go in, tick your box, walk out again.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So page 54 then. That was the next one I highlighted there. Which was pairing of key. Well, it comes from that sort of chapter, page 52, pairing of key results. Andy, Bruce, because this one sort of, I think, fits nicely in your realm.
Yeah, I thought it made a lot of sense. I tend to find whenever, I'm looking at KPIs, they always seem to kind of come in pairs or something like that. I've been doing some work recently on our sort of dashboards and things, and one of the things I've been pulling out is our sort of percentage time build on a project. And obviously financially we want that to be as high as possible, but you don't want it as high as possible at any cost, because if you end up upsetting the client or not delivering a high level of service, then that's worse. So there has to be another KPI that goes along with it that kind of keeps things in balance. So yeah, it was good to see that.
It's that yin and yang. If you push over this way, something will give as a result of you pushing that way, and you've got to make sure there's another metric that ensures that doesn't give too much. Speed and quality. As a sort of I suppose you've got them in there, sort of the classic ones. So when we do set key results, KPIs, always have that in mind. If I push this one to the extreme, what gives to achieve that, and then make sure that you have another goal in place. And what about on the other side of the page, 55, with the Indy 500 result? Because this is what I find a lot of people, when they start setting goals, is I call them fluffy goals. He calls them weak goals. The objective: win the Indy 500, increase lap speed, reduce pit stop time. And then making them really much stronger.
Just goes back to sort of SMART goals again, doesn't it? Basically, sort of that we said before. So if it's not measurable, if it doesn't have sort of a time set to it and some sort of variable, some sort of number that you can measure, obviously it's difficult to actually know if you've achieved it.
Yeah. And
I thought it was quite.
Go on, then.
I thought it was quite clever in the way that he said he set this big goal, and then he's broken it down to the steps which leads to that goal, and he thought about it in reverse, because try and work it the other way round, I think, would be much more difficult.
Yeah. And also that commitment to only a few things. I think that's a big thing, certainly in business, is we want to grow our business, move it forwards, and there's finance area, the sales area, the operations, the people, and within there we've got loads of objectives, and it's like, well, there's so many things I should do, and this is, look, just keep it to I think he says company-wide, no more than 5 objectives, and then for each objective, no more than 5 key results. So it's more a case of what you don't do is probably more important than what you actually do. And I think too many people fret about, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, and they make themselves so thin across the ground that nothing gets done. Whereas if you just say, right, my one objective, like this, increase lap speed by 2%, great. And then my activity is to actually achieve that. That's what I'm going to focus on this quarter. So as I think you'll find as you guys have done more 90-day plans, the first one is sort of, it's almost like how much stuff can I actually get in it? And then after, if you've done a few, you just realize that there's only so much I can get done. So it's about the quality of stuff I get done rather than the quantity. So that to me was a key one. So, excuse me. So what was the next one? I'm not sure where I've got it somewhere. I think it was a bit later, but I brought it forwards. This sort of difference between committed and aspirational goals. So what was your thoughts around that? I can't.
Where is it?
Hi, Kevin.
Yep.
Hi there. Yeah, I think with committed versus aspirational, I think for most companies it's be quite important because, like, for me in the finance team, we've got lots of committed goals. We have to have the audit finish. We have to pay the taxes on time. I have to do the payroll, etc., etc. But I think also for growth though, you need those aspirational goals. You want that, I want 25% growth. I want 100 new customers this year or whatever. You're not going to get 100 new customers this year, but you're going to try. So I think it's in the book, and it's those big, hairy, audacious goals. So you're going to have those two types of objectives with the committed ones where you have to have it done. You have to get that job finished. That project has to be done. Otherwise we're buggered. Whereas the aspirational ones, if we get it, wow, that's going to be good. So it's a bit of a mix, and I think it's quite important. Yeah.
I mean, I sort of been unwittingly doing it, but I think when I sort of read this, it was there are goals where this score out of 1. I don't know why I use 0 to 1. I would use 1 to 10 or percentages, but that I wouldn't really be expecting 100%. But likewise, there are some goals that you've got to say, no, this is a must achieve. And I like the way he then sort of talks about where you put the resource. So it helps you track. So if you've got a team of people, some working on committed and some on aspirational, if the committed ones are struggling, you move the resource from the aspirational ones into the committed ones. They are not the same. They're not equal partners. So it gives you that ability to focus the effort and the resource that you need to get it done. If you're going to commit to it, then commit to it. Don't get to the end of it and go, oh, well, we were doing other things. So I think we've always got to just remind ourselves, certainly when we get stuck in the minutiae, right, what were my committed goals? What were my aspirational goals? If it's a committed goal, great, then just focus on getting that done.
We've had some interesting conversations about this because I've struggled a bit, I think, with the aspirational side of things, which is not that I didn't want to, but I'm kind of so entrenched in being a corporate world that you would never do something like that because you'd be wiped the floor with because you just may not get to it.
Yeah.
So it's almost you kind of just in the habit of playing, not safe, but doing something you think is stretch, but that you want to get within 90% of, because otherwise you knew you were going to get hammered if you didn't do it.
And I think the key to that, and I think a couple of case studies refer to it, is if you've got the mentality where everything is a committed goal, then you start under targeting. So let's say you wanted to get, aspirational was 100, and you this has got to be committed, and you knew you could get to 50, you'd probably set your goal at 30. So you just then lose the drive and so what if you went for 50 and you achieve 60? And people with that culture will start setting their goals way, way, way too low.
At the same time, it was interesting that there was I forget which of the sections it was in, but they were talking about communicating it to the team and kind of getting people to get on board with the aspirational goals. And actually, I forget what it, was it a billion YouTube? Was it a billion YouTube?
Yes.
Was it? No, it was Chrome. It was a billion Chrome users, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they said, they took that to some members of the team. They're just like, yeah, forget it. It's never going to happen. And it was about then breaking it down and making it clear that it was possible, and this is what they were going to have to do to achieve it. I think without that, then it's just kind of pie in the sky, and people just go, yeah, whatever. You try for that if you want. It's not going to happen. So yeah, having a realistic plan to achieve an audacious goal is that, to my mind, that was quite key.
Yeah, because you're setting the key results of the activities. So this is what we're going to do. We think that doing that will achieve that, but it may or may not. And then you track the results. And then you've got the color coding and where are we on track, where are we off track. So I think we did identify key results. Keep it simple. 3 to 5 key results for every objective. Make it nice and simple. And they're sort of the benchmarks. They're the milestones that we're monitoring too. So, and these have now got to be very smart. So it's like the aspirational goals don't need to be that smart. Committed goals need to be smart. Key results need to be very smart. So we really start putting numbers in here, activity-based sort of factors within there. I think the OKR cycle. Any comments on that? Don't think that was a particularly, because we've all been working pretty much to 90-day plans anyway. So I think if you hadn't, if you weren't working to 90-day plans, it probably was a revelation. But I've been ramming that down your throat since we started. So I'm hoping that was a pretty standard one. So I think where I want to go now is in the align and connect for teamwork. Superpower 2 was page 84. And this sort of top down OKRs, and he calls sort of bottom up. It was really what you're, because I like top down ones. I think, that's what I would do. I'd take the goal there and I'd scale it all the way down, and then I sort of turned over the page and he said, that doesn't work. So and I was sort of thinking, okay, well let's get your view on that then, this sort of cross-functional coordination, see what you thought about it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kevin. I thought that was very interesting. That was one of the most interesting bits, because in a massive corporate like Google, so from a first glance, if you let everyone just set their own goals, you'd assume that they'd be so sort of misaligned, and it wouldn't sort of achieve the objective at all. And you'd think that it'd be easier to start at the top and sort of get them to go down each step, kind of thing, get the goals to sort of fall down into each level. But it was interesting the way that he said no. He turned it on his head and said, no, it should start bottom up. People should set their own gols in line with the top line company objective. So yeah, it was interesting. Definitely. Yeah. That was unusual.
I think it just shows the level of buy-in from all the team you need in order to do that. Yeah, I don't think there's many companies that have been established for a long time not doing this that could do this straight away. That could suddenly go to their, let's call them the shop floor guys and say, right, you guys are now going to set your objectives and key results, to help us achieve the headline goal. I think they just turn around to you and look at you like, what do you mean? You just tell us what to do. Why do we have to think? I just come to work to do stuff. But you can see in a company like Google, where we don't know. I think one of the things he said he did refer in this to the 20% project, wasn't it? That's it. Yeah, 2001, young Paul Buchheit initiated a 20% project with a code name Caribou, and then it became Gmail. So that was in Google giving everyone 20% of their time to do whatever they want to do, as long as it's helping us achieve our overall objective. I think that's the bit you've got to have in. Look, the overall objective of the company is this. This is where we want to be in 5-10 years' time. Yeah. Now you set your goal in your department that you think is going to help us achieve that. So you've got to get buy-in, and that's why we always say, vision, values, purpose. Through the organisation, if they don't know what your purpose is, or your vision is, or your values is, and you start letting them set goals, then you will be in trouble. Any other thoughts from that? Any experiences from trying to sort of do a bottom-up goal setting? Okay, so track for accountability then. That was superpower 3. There were two key parts of this. One was cloud-based management software to effectively track your OKR. I haven't come across Workboard, Ali, any of those ones there. I know, Bruce and Andy, you use your system, don't you? You've been doing this for years.
Not for OKRs. I mean, most of what we do is tracked online one way or another.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of, I don't think we currently have objectives across the company that you could consider to be OKRs. The individual team members have their own objectives, but they tend to be quite kind of CPD focused. So they will be around sort of training objectives or achieving professional registration or something like that. They're not aligned to company goals. So for that reason, they're, well, A, they're not OKRs, and B, there's no particular benefit in tracking them in one sort of single integrated system. So they tend to be, I mean, they are online, but they're just things that individuals have access to and their mentors have access to.
I have to say I got really excited about this because I discovered in Breathe about a month ago it can do that, exactly that.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's got our annual plan, it's got the 90-day plan in it as
Yeah.
company goals, and then each of the individual objectives are linked as to which bit they go to.
Very good.
Oh, sounds good.
So I was a bit like, ooh.
And to be honest, my sort of 90-day plan spreadsheet is my version of that. It's not online, it's not particularly sophisticated, but it does mean that once it's written down, we can check in where people are. So it doesn't have, it could be a whiteboard. It doesn't have to be, obviously you've got a massive organisation with hundreds of people around the world, then it's got to be online. But a way to track, and check in how well we're doing, I think is really key. And then I think the other bit which I'm glad he put in, I don't think he spent enough time on it myself, was the OKR shepherd. I think it was given, it was given that paragraph there. And I thought, no, that's probably the most important thing in the whole book, is somebody actually in charge of keeping it on top of things, providing that accountability. Because you will get procrastination, you will get people going offline, and that's can be, I think, the hardest thing. Certainly as a small business running around trying to keep people to their to their OKRs, and stop them. We find it hard enough ourselves not going back into the minutiae. Plus then we've got to help our teams not to go back into the minutiae. I think it's a tough one. But I quite,
certainly for us, going back a few years, we used to have a system where we recorded in spreadsheets objectives for all the different departments.
Yeah.
And the department managers, would be responsible, each quarter for, working, proposing the objectives for the next quarter, and we'd be reviewing progress against them. And the biggest frustration I had, I guess, is just trying to get everybody to do it, and it tended to be a bit of a mad rush towards the end of the quarter, trying to get everyone to go through these things. And people would have other time pressures, and so I guess I was the shepherd at that point, but it was quite a frustrating job. And eventually, because of we found it so difficult, ultimately it petered out, and we haven't replaced that system. I think reading the book has inspired me to pick up that,
relook at it again.
look at it again.
I think it is. It's not shepherds of sheep; it's shepherds of cats. That's what it is. It's it's just it is hard work. If you've got somebody that you can employ that is just their job, then I think that's the point where it becomes easier and it gets done more often. But you've got to be of a certain size where you can justify the investment in that. So
I think it's interesting in the case studies how they were saying, look, you don't expect just to put it all in place one night and it work. Some of these big companies, they struggled. They had issues, but ultimately, they got there and had an amazing system. But
I think it was 3 years. I think it was about 3 years it took them to really, start, fail, didn't get the buy-in, started again, failed, didn't get the buy-in. And I think that just shows the level of commitment to this. That if you believe that this is the way, you've got to just keep driving it. You can't just, people aren't responding to it, or it's not quite working. There is that real inherent belief that no, look, we are going to run the organisation this way.
One of the big challenges that we have is that, you know, most of the team are spending most of their time on client projects, and we have always tended not to set objectives that are, you know, the client's objectives, because, you know, that's that's something that will that is dynamic, and we wouldn't have visibility of at the start of the quarter and things like that. And the team don't struggle to prioritize customer work. That quite the opposite. The customer work is always, you know, the priority, and that kind of means that any objectives that we set for that are more working on the business, if you like, tend to play second fiddle to the client work, which is understandable and in some cases totally necessary. But it's all too easy to sort of come and sit down with people at the end of the quarter and look at their objectives, and they say, well, you know, I was flat out on this project for the last 3 months, so I haven't even had a chance to look at this. And you kind of say, well, fair enough. So in some cases it becomes a bit of a fruitless exercise in that circumstance. But yeah, that's something that we need to improve on.
Yeah, I'd say, look, it's in small businesses is where we're trying to do all things. It is very tough, you know. But there is that element within the Google thing of the 20% is, you know, build your model around the fact that there can be 20% non-chargeable, non-working in the business time.
Yeah, we have that model, but it doesn't mean that people don't switch away from it when the you know there's a deadline coming up or whatever. But
then that becomes an OKR, doesn't it? You know, the objective is to spend 20% of our time working on non-chargeable work. And are we green? Are we amber? Are we red? You know, if you believe, if you believe that. Sorry, David?
20% is a hell of a commitment.
Yeah.
Kind of, I could turn around and say, from my own business, maybe 5, maybe 10%, but 20%. By the time you take on admin and other jobs that are non-fee earning, is just quite a real high figure.
Yeah, but look, maybe it's not 20% day one. I tell you when we start that it's 5 hours a week.
Yeah.
If you don't dedicate 5 hours a week to moving your business forwards, then you ain't going to move forwards.
Yeah, but what as a director, I can kind of get that. But if I turn around and said, yeah, Keith, you've got 20% of your time to spend on non-fee earning work, and Claire, you've got 20% of your time to spend on non-fee earning work, it's all right, kind of people who are at the higher end of the business doing that because that's driving it forward. But it's a hell of a commitment to say everybody across the business is taking 20% out for that, and then they've got 10% for admin. So they're only down to now 70% delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I must say we're not. I mean, we spend more than 20% on non-fee earning activities across the business, but we're not quite Google in the sense that people don't have 20% of their time to spend on whatever they feel like. They do have a percentage of time to spend on whatever they feel like. That varies depending on what roles they have. Yeah, we do set aside a good chunk of time for internal activities. But yeah, we don't structure it in quite the same way.
Yeah. I think, you know, looking at the Google 20%, I'm not sure whether it's everybody, you know, across the board has 20%. I think there is a sort of, whether it's an option or the certain departments are allowed to do that. But it's not just you can do anything you want. It's that they have to say, this is what I'm going to work on. They have to report in on a regular basis of what they're doing. And what for them, what happens is they actually put more time that in because they use their own time, because it's a project that they love, that they're bought into. So, you know, they're actually working their own evenings and weekends on it as well.
Yeah, there's a good Dilbert cartoon about
that. In what way?
This guy from Google says to Dilbert, "Oh, it's fantastic at Google. I get 20% of my time to work on whatever I want." And Google says, "Well, how many hours a week do you work?" And of course, he works way more than 20%.
Right, yeah.
So he's basically doing it all in his own time.
Yeah, yeah. But so look, to go from 0 to 20%, probably not. You know, to go to, you know, half a day a month, might be possible. But only if you've got, again, the objective and they've got something to do in that time that is of value. If it's not of value, then yeah, of course, doing client work and other stuff is going to be more valuable. So we're going to have these regular check-ins, you know, reassess, and then, you know, scoring. So page 118 was sort of the scoring. You know, and this sort of midlife tracking, and then having the ability to adapt the KPI if you want to. So if it's not, I keep calling it KPI, key result, if you want to, you know, if it's green, keep going, modify it. If it's yellow, you know, start something new. Or, yeah, if it's red and it's not working, and you look at it and say, look, we may as well just give up on this. Don't be afraid to give up on something and change it. So, you know, this constant review of progress of where we are. And then page 123 was sort of, you know, this, yeah, our progress and score. So, you know, how far forward are we? Yeah, and I think the score, he seems to be quite happy that it's a subjective score. You know, as a team, you can sort of say, look, I think we're a 0.9 or a 0.8, 0.6. So I think that is so important, you know, on a regular basis to check in, because you know, the big part of this is feedback. People want feedback. They need feedback to know how well they're doing. You need feedback to know how well you're doing. And the more feedback that we give, I think the better it is. I think that leads, as we go through, into I think there was sort of stretch for amazing, which I think that was fairly, we've covered most of that. Yeah, so that was repeat. 4 options for each goal. Continue, revise, start, stop. That was that page there. What did you think of the scoring? 0.7, 0.4. Was it just me that just thought that was just a stupid way to score something?
I think it's probably, it did make me think that it harks back to their engineering backgrounds.
It's a really high C way of scoring. You know?
I didn't get it. Why not just do 1 to 10?
Yeah.
It's extra ink. You're wasting ink.
Yeah. I just thought, why would you? It's a 0.3, you know, why is 1? It's like, it's going to be that, then make it a percentage. It's like, I don't know,
but if you're representing a percentage in code, you wouldn't represent it as a percentage. You'd
no,
it as a
yeah,
from,
I see it is very much an engineering, you know, sort of mindset. So for the rest of us, 1 to 10 is fine. It really is fine. So,
this engineer, 1 to 10 is fine.
So that then brings us on to chapter 15. So this is where I think for me it started to really come together. Continued performance management, CFRs, conversations, feedback, recognition, really bringing this now into the 90-day appraisal cycle. I've harped on this for years about, we've got to get away from annual appraisals, completely pointless. Got to come back, bring into, continual review, continual performance review. But I quite like his idea of these are conversations and feedback and recognition sessions rather than appraisals. I've never really liked appraisal in a regular thing. It's sort of quite hard and you're being appraised, So a conversation, feedback, recognition meeting, I quite like that, sort of CFRs. So what was that for you, Sabrina? How did you sort of see that one?
It's funny that you should come back to me at this point, and it's perfect timing, thank you, because I'm looking back at this chapter, and as soon as you said, I knew which chapter you were referring to when you said it came to light for you. This was absolutely the best chapter for me, and I noticed looking back, I've got more highlights in this chapter than I had in any of the others. I think I can relate to the conversations, the feedback, and the recognition, which has always been hugely important to me. I struggle in our company. I think a lot of people will acknowledge that recognition is important, but when it comes down to actually giving it or doing it, it's another matter. I think so much because of what's gone before, we need to be much more open with our objectives and our results. And in assessing, I liked what he said about there is no judgment, only learning. And all of this can be brought together in the feedback and in the recognition and looking for the positives. And yes, I understood this chapter very well. It was good.
Cool, good. Anyone else that this one jumped out at them?
I don't know if it jumped out at me, but I completely agree with it, as you know, and always have done.
I would hope so, Steph.
I think, there's so many businesses that to be honest, I think 9 out of 10 new clients we pick up typically are because they've got some problem and because they haven't communicated in earlier days. It's grown and grown and grown. So in some ways, we don't want to necessarily preach this to the whole world because nobody will have any problems anymore or need us. But I just think it's human nature, and I don't know if it's because we're British as well. We kind of struggle to have conversations with people.
It's worldwide, Steph. My colleagues across the globe, same thing.
And I think it's just traditionally, going back years when you would kind of train on an annual appraisal, and you'd say, well, you'd keep notes throughout the year, and you'd talk about and you'd highlight when you'd give them feedback and when you'd sat down with the person because they hadn't done something right, and people would just look at you glassy-eyed across the room going, well, why would we do that? So it's it's obviously for me not a new concept, and I'm completely behind it. So but I think it's one that really probably can have quite an impact on a lot of people.
Yeah. And what about the amicable divorce on page 180?
I'm gonna have to go, guys.
Okay, Damien. Cheers. Oh, it's 9 o'clock, isn't it? Yeah, we're nearly done. So
yeah, it was interesting. I obviously never heard called anything like that, but I think it's logical again. It's not rocket science, an odd label, but I think it makes sense. And certainly, I've always been, whenever I've had teams, regardless of whatever, we've always said, look, let's be honest. If it's an objective that's just not needed anymore, let's ditch it and come up with something new. There's no point in just keeping it there for the sake of it.
Yeah. I had literally a client this week, talking about, some of the team was saying, well, we've done, I've done really well this year. Can I have a pay rise? And he was going, I should give them a pay rise because they have done really well. No, you're in real danger here, you know, because if they don't do well, you don't reduce their pay, do you? You know, you've underperformed this year, so we're going to knock some money off. You know, got to get that divorce between performance and pay. Ultimately, if you perform badly, then you lose your job.
And I see this from being, obviously, I'm on a couple of boards, and so many people struggle with the concept of what pay is about. And it's that you are paid to do the job that you're doing to a good level. And, you know, and it's a bit like when you do appraisal ratings, whatever you do, and people talk about bonuses and they go, well, they did a really good job. Yeah, well, they're paid to do a really good job.
Yeah.
You know, you need to understand from a pay strategy what you pay for, what your incentivization is for, you know, and as long as it's clear and you know, you create that clear link, it makes such a difference.
Yeah. And really, you know, in their mind, they're probably just saying, look, can I have some recognition, please? Because if you've given them no recognition whatsoever during the year for doing a good job, you know, and it comes to sort of, you know, when money's on their mind, yeah, they're going to link the two. And if you pay them for that, then you're reinforcing that link, which actually shouldn't be there. So, but if you give them good recognition throughout the year for a job well done, then I think you'll break that connection between the two. So it's got to sort of really come together. So good. So I'm conscious of time, guys. So I think chapter 18 was about culture. So, you know, and this really goes back to vision, you know, vision, values, purpose, you know, living the culture, bringing it through. And then sort of I didn't quite understand the Bono story, to be honest. I was listening to it on audio and it was just Bono whittering on, which I don't particularly like Bono, but that's just me. So, and then, you know, I'd say if you get to page 255 onwards, you know, there's a really, if you want to go back and really understand, you know, what the book is all about, 255 to 275 really is the summary of the book. So it's a good one just to sort of, you know, pop back into to look at, to get a feeling of what it's all about. So overall summary then, Gary, what was the key things for the book for you, and what are you going to do as a result of reading this book?
I think the same with Sabrina, the continual performance management thing. Like you say, yearly appraisals are just terrible. We've, you know, in 15 years we've been with NMT, we've never done one because we just knew that they're worthless. but having something like this and moving forward, I think will be a big plan.
Yeah.
And like you say, the idea of the OKR, the OKRs, it's good, but like you say, you need buy-in. You need buy-in from the top.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe for me as a team, maybe, but putting forward the idea of the CPM is that's a big eye opener for us, or for me, and I think it's a really good idea.
It's a tough one. I mean, look, if you are just, you know, a cog in the wheel, there's no reason why you can't do it for your own department and just say, look, guys, you know, what's our objective, you know, and let's be better than we are, because, you know, at least we can enjoy the ride. You know, maybe if you do that, it gets noticed from above. And I mean, I've been doing that with another client who's runs a department in a bigger company, and the work we've been doing for the last couple of years has been noticed by the CEO, and he's now starting to participate in it slowly, but, you know, he's starting to get that, yeah, this stuff is actually working. You know, so be the change you want to see. You know, I would always ask at the top, you know, certainly give people at the top a copy of the book and say, look, whether they read it or not, but shouldn't stop you doing it. I think you can easily do this in your own department. So cool. Bruce?
Yeah, it was a really good book. I enjoyed it. I think it's given me lots of ideas. Yeah, there's certainly aspects in the book that we do well, and there's quite a few aspects that where we've got gaps and we need to improve. I think I guess for me, the biggest thing is being clear on our objectives to the whole company. So being visible in public, and hopefully in time we can roll out OKRs across the whole team, and for them to be aligned, and we're all working. We know what we're aiming for each year and each quarter, and we can support each other as a team. That's what I'd like to work towards.
When you put it in that way, that's all we're trying to do here. We just want to support each other towards a common goal. But we do, as leaders, we do have to set that, and I think that aspirational and committed, I think that's a really good connection, differentiation between the two. Make the people understand this is a committed goal, we must achieve this. This is an aspirational goal. It will be great if we achieve it. So, cool. Gary, are you able to contribute? I'll come back to Gary. Steph?
I think it's, to me, a lot of this obviously wasn't new to me. I really enjoyed it as a book, but it's kind of concept of which I'm really probably quite passionate from the people side of things. I think it's that reinforcement of the aspirational stuff, making sure you do shoot for the stars and not necessarily something that's realistic.
Cool. Good. Steve?
Yeah, I was sort of I came to the book with a little bit of cynicism, to be honest. It's similar to how Damien mentioned it earlier on. I thought, do we really need another business goal setting acronym? We've already got KPIs. I mean, do we really need OKRs as well? And it's such a simple concept. I think it probably could be covered in one blog post, quite honestly. But having said that, the bit where he said they did a survey how many businesses actually could name this. So what is your one objective? What are you trying to do? And what are the 3 things you're going to do to get there? And they said like 20% of businesses could name it or less. And I think if we all asked ourselves the same thing, it'd probably be the same. So I think although it's such a simple concept and you think it's obvious, actually it's a good reminder that you need to do it, basically, and making it simple is quite effective, I think. So started out quite cynically, but by the end thought I was really glad that I read the book and I've started to use the OKRs as well.
I don't think it, whether you call it, I still would call it goals and KPIs, because for me that just works. I don't need to change my language into objectives and key results. It's just, but when I think KPIs, I'm thinking key results. It's, I think you can take it the wrong way, but if you keep it on that basis, it's whatever works. There's no one right way. Choose the bits out of here that work, add them to what you've got, and away you go. So good. Andy?
I thought when I went through it, I think we were as a business well aligned with the ethos, but probably weak on the implementation. So I think there's a lot of takeaways for us. In terms of the book itself, it felt a bit back to front to me. It felt like the longest introduction in the world, followed by a tiny bit of content at the end. If I'd have written it, I'd have probably put the content up front and then followed it up with all the case studies. But there we go.
And unfortunately, you'll get to learn that in America you get paid by the word. In the rest of the world you get paid by the book. So they like padding books out in America.
It did feel padded.
But it was okay on audio. I mean, I was listening in the car on the way back through Spain, and Jane was rolling her eyes on many occasions. It was getting a bit tedious, but that's why I think we need to do a speed reading course at some stage and teach you all how to speed read books, because you can get through a book like that in probably 2 hours. Cool. Sabrina?
Well, initially my thoughts were a bit like Steve's. Actually, I think it's an exciting concept, and on the surface it's a simple structure, but there's a lot of depth to it and a lot of method to working it successfully. And for us, I know we've got to have clearer objectives, more focus, make it more public, and do a lot more feedback.
Cool. Nice. Excellent. Good. Right. Well, upcoming events dates for your diary. So, I've left it 26th of Feb. It's probably 26th of March, isn't it? We're going to, I'm going out on a bit of a limb here. I don't know, has anybody read Sun Tzu's book? So Sun Tzu, The Art of War is a well-known classic, written 500 BC, obviously in Chinese, number of translations over the years. I managed to listen to it on the English translation on the drive down to Spain, and then we actually had this guy Anthony Cummins as one of our guest speakers on our internal conferences, and he'd written this book, and sort of he said I brought it into the modern world and related it to life at the moment. I thought, well, that would be really good, because there were concepts in the book that I thought, yeah, okay, we're not in war anymore, but if you treat business as war, as a game that we're playing, then I think we can bring these lessons into business. So, having not read the book, I thought I'll make this the book club book of the month. I've just got the copy of the book, and there are 235 lessons. So, how I'm going to get through 235 lessons in an hour, I've no idea. So, what I'd like you to do is because I still think there's some really good stuff in it. Some is difficult perhaps to put into modern world and certainly business life, but a lot is. Each lesson is only a page long, so it's not, and it's nice big print. It's a pretty easy read. But what I'd like you to do is read it in the context that war is business. Don't read it like war is war, because you end up sort of down in with toy soldiers and stuff like that, or I certainly was in my head. Treat it that the war is the business. It's either us against the competition, so that the enemy is our competitors, or the enemy is the marketplace, or the enemy is the customer. However you want to see that there's this sort of game that's going on. And then I'd like you to go through, and not every chapter will be relevant, but I'd like you to highlight and mark the chapters that are the most relevant to you and what you learn from them and what you can do as a result of what you read in there differently within your work life. Okay, and then for each of you, I'd like you to then choose your top 5, and then we'll share the top 5 from each one. Okay, because we're no way we're going to get through 235. So I just thought, find the top 5 sort of chapters or lessons that you think relate to you, that you think, yeah, that's great. I think that's made me look at things slightly differently. And then we'll share those. And we might find that there's only 5 in the book that relate to us all. My feeling is we'll probably have 5 completely different ones. Happy with that? Okay, good. Have a good one then, guys, and we'll see you hopefully next week or so. So take care. Bye for now.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.